Sometimes the smallest distance between two people becomes the longest journey inside their hearts. Noah Carter had always believed that friendship was the safest place love could never reach. And for nearly 10 years, that belief had shaped every ordinary moment he shared with Liam Foster. They met during their first week of college, survived impossible final exams together, celebrated promotions, comforted each other through disappointments, and somehow built a friendship so natural that everyone around them assumed it would last forever. On a cool Friday evening in early autumn, several old college friends gathered at a neighborhood cafe with strings of warm lights hanging above the outdoor patio. Laughter drifted through the air, coffee cups steamed on wooden tables, and familiar stories returned as easily as breathing. Noah arrived a few minutes late after finishing work at the architecture firm, apologizing with the same smile everyone expected from him. Liam had already saved him a seat on a long wooden bench that was nearly full. As Noah slipped into the empty space beside him, another group unexpectedly joined the gathering, leaving everyone crowded together. Liam shifted only slightly to make room, their shoulders touching almost immediately. There was still open space farther down the bench where either of them could have moved comfortably, yet neither one did. Noah noticed the closeness before he realized he was noticing it. He could feel the warmth of Liam's jacket against his own sleeve, hear the quiet rhythm of his breathing whenever the conversations around them briefly faded, and catch the faint scent of cedar and fresh coffee whenever Liam turned to answer someone across the table. Nothing unusual happened. Nobody looked at them differently. Nobody made a comment. The evening continued with stories about work, family vacations, forgotten college adventures, and ambitious plans for the future. Yet Noah found himself paying less attention to the conversations and more attention to a silence that seemed to exist only between the two of them. Several times he considered shifting a few inches away, not because he felt uncomfortable, but because remaining so close suddenly felt strangely important. Each time he almost moved, Liam casually reached for his coffee or laughed at another friend's joke without changing his own position. Somehow that tiny decision not to create more space became impossible to ignore. Later in the evening, one of their friends suggested taking a group photograph before everyone headed home. As they gathered together beneath the cafe lights, Noah noticed that Liam naturally stood beside him without thinking about it, just as he always had for years. The camera flashed, everyone laughed, and the moment passed as quickly as it arrived. Yet while driving home through the quiet streets of the city, Noah could not stop replaying that simple image of two friends sitting shoulder to shoulder on an ordinary bench. He told himself he was overthinking something completely insignificant. After all, close friends sat beside each other every day without questioning it. They shared meals, long conversations, road trips, and countless memories. There was nothing remarkable about a crowded bench at a neighborhood cafe. Even so, when Noah reached his apartment and placed his keys on the kitchen counter, he caught himself smiling at the memory before suddenly asking a question he had never considered during the entire decade they had known each other. If moving away had been so easy, why had neither of them wanted to be the first to do it? The days that followed felt almost identical to every other week Noah and Liam had shared during the past decade. Yet something invisible had quietly shifted beneath the surface of ordinary routines. Every Tuesday morning, they still met at the same neighborhood coffee shop before work. Every Saturday, they still wandered through the downtown farmers market, debating which bakery made the better sourdough bread and laughing over small disagreements that never lasted longer than a few minutes. From the outside, nothing had changed, and perhaps that was exactly what confused Noah the most. He kept telling himself that the strange awareness from the cafe had been nothing more than an overactive imagination. Then Liam sent a simple text one Wednesday afternoon asking if Noah wanted to grab dinner after work, just as he had done hundreds of times before. Noah smiled before he even realized he was smiling. He answered immediately, then paused, wondering why that single message had brightened an otherwise exhausting day. Dinner was relaxed, comfortable, and completely familiar. They talked about Noah's latest architectural project, Liam's students preparing for the upcoming semester, and an old movie they both loved enough to quote from memory. Yet Noah noticed details that had somehow escaped him for years. He noticed how Liam always waited until Noah had taken the first sip of coffee before beginning an important conversation. He noticed the way Liam instinctively slowed his walking pace whenever Noah stopped to admire an interesting building. He noticed that whenever they laughed together, Liam always looked directly at him before looking at anyone else nearby, as though sharing the moment with Noah mattered first. None of those habits were new. They had probably existed for years. The only difference was that Noah was finally paying attention. A few evenings later they met again, this time to walk through the riverside park as the sun slowly disappeared behind the skyline. Children played near the fountain, cyclists passed along the paved trail, and musicians filled the air with soft acoustic melodies. Liam casually handed Noah a paper cup of hot chocolate without asking what he wanted because he already knew. Noah accepted it with an appreciative smile, before realizing that Liam remembered countless tiny preferences he had never needed to explain. As they continued walking, their hands briefly brushed while reaching for the same park map posted beside the trail. Both quietly pulled back, exchanged an awkward smile, and continued walking without mentioning the moment. The silence did not feel uncomfortable. It felt unusually meaningful. Later that night, Noah returned home, placed his jacket over the back of a chair, and found himself scrolling through years of photographs stored on his phone. Weekend road trips, birthday celebrations, camping adventures, baseball games, holiday dinners, graduation ceremonies, and ordinary afternoons at neighborhood cafes appeared one after another. In almost every photograph, Liam stood somewhere beside him, smiling with the effortless familiarity of someone who had never imagined being anywhere else. Noah suddenly wondered when Liam had become the first person he wanted to tell every piece of good news, the first person he called whenever life became difficult, and the one face he searched for in every crowded room. Those answers should have been obvious after 10 years of friendship, yet they now carried a weight that felt entirely different. Before going to bed, Noah received another message from Liam asking whether he wanted to join a weekend camping trip with several old friends. Noah typed yes almost instantly. As he placed his phone on the bedside table, he quietly admitted something to himself that he still could not fully explain. The upcoming trip mattered to him less because of the destination and far more because he already knew exactly who he hoped would be sitting beside him when the evening quietly settled into another ordinary conversation beneath the stars. The drive to the state park took just under 2 hours, filled with familiar conversations, shared playlists, and the comfortable rhythm that always seemed to appear whenever Noah and Liam traveled together. Their group of friends had rented a small lakeside cabin surrounded by towering pine trees already beginning to show the first colors of autumn. The air smelled of fresh wood, cool water, and distant campfires drifting across the shoreline. After unloading backpacks and supplies, everyone divided into small groups to prepare dinner, gather firewood, or explore the nearby hiking trails. Noah naturally assumed Liam would disappear with the others for a while, but somehow they continued, ending up beside each other without making any deliberate effort. They walked the narrow forest paths, discussing everything from favorite childhood memories to the books they had recently finished, laughing over stories they had told countless times before yet somehow never grew tired of hearing again. Late that afternoon, dark clouds rolled across the sky much faster than anyone expected. A sudden shower swept through the park, sending everyone hurrying back toward the cabin while carrying folding chairs, blankets, and half-finished picnic baskets. Rain tapped gently against the wooden roof as everyone gathered inside around large windows overlooking the lake. Some friends played cards at the dining table, while others prepared hot chocolate in the kitchen. Noah found an empty chair beside the window, and only a moment later Liam quietly sat next to him. Outside, raindrops rippled across the water while mist slowly covered the distant shoreline. Neither of them spoke for several minutes. The peaceful silence somehow felt more meaningful than any conversation they could have started. Liam finally smiled and pointed toward a weathered canoe resting upside down beside the dock. "Remember the first camping trip we took after graduation?" Noah laughed immediately. "You insisted we could paddle across the lake even though neither of us had done it before." Liam shook his head with amused embarrassment. "We spent more time going in circles than moving forward." Noah smiled at the memory. "We still reached the other side eventually." Liam looked toward the rain falling beyond the glass before quietly answering, "I think we always do." The simple sentence lingered in Noah's thoughts long after the conversation drifted toward lighter topics. Throughout the evening, he noticed himself watching Liam in quiet moments instead of only listening to him. He noticed the gentle patience Liam showed while helping another friend prepare dinner, the thoughtful way he listened whenever someone shared a personal concern, and the easy warmth that seemed to make every room feel more welcoming. Those qualities had always been part of Liam's character. Noah simply had never looked at them with such careful attention before. Later, after the rain ended, everyone stepped outside to enjoy the cool evening air. A small campfire crackled near the shoreline as stars gradually appeared above the dark lake. Friends gathered around sharing stories and roasting marshmallows while soft laughter echoed through the trees. Noah realized something that caught him completely by surprise. Whenever someone began speaking, his eyes instinctively searched for Liam before focusing on anyone else. It was not a conscious decision. It happened naturally, as though his mind wanted quiet reassurance that Liam was nearby before fully enjoying the moment. Sitting beside the fire beneath a sky filled with stars, Noah finally understood that the comfort he had always associated with friendship had quietly become something much deeper. He still could not find the courage to name the feeling, but for the first time he admitted to himself that if Liam ever disappeared from the ordinary moments of his life, every familiar place would suddenly feel unfamiliar, and that realization followed him long after the last campfire ember faded into the peaceful night. The camping trip ended with the same laughter that had filled the weekend, yet Noah returned home carrying a quiet question he could no longer ignore. Monday morning arrived with familiar routines. He reviewed architectural drawings, attended client meetings, and answered emails that had accumulated while he was away, but every so often his thoughts wandered back to the lakeside cabin, the rain against the windows, and the peaceful silence he had shared with Liam. By Thursday evening, their group of friends met once again at their favorite neighborhood restaurant, a place they had visited so often that the staff greeted them by name before anyone reached the table. The atmosphere felt warm and relaxed as everyone exchanged stories from the camping trip. Someone joked about getting lost on the hiking trail, while another friend laughed about nearly burning dinner over the campfire. Noah sat beside Liam again, without either of them discussing where they should sit. It had become the most natural decision in the world. Halfway through the meal, their longtime friend Emily leaned back in her chair with an amused smile after watching Noah quietly refill Liam's water glass without being asked. "Can I ask both of you something?" she said with playful curiosity. Noah looked up. Liam nodded with a relaxed grin. Emily folded her arms across the table. "Have either of you ever considered the possibility that you already act more like a couple than best friends?" The table erupted with surprised laughter. Someone jokingly agreed, while another friend teased that Noah and Liam had probably spent more weekends together than most married people. Noah laughed along with everyone else, grateful that the conversation sounded lighthearted, yet something inside him tightened. Liam smiled politely and shook his head. "We have just been friends for a long time." His answer came naturally, almost automatically. The conversation quickly shifted toward another topic, but Noah noticed something unusual. For the first time in nearly 10 years, the comfortable silence between them felt different. As everyone left the restaurant later that evening, Noah and Liam walked together toward the parking lot beneath rows of softly glowing streetlights. The cool autumn air carried the scent of fallen leaves, and neither of them spoke for several moments. Noah wanted to say something about Emily's question, but every sentence that formed in his mind disappeared before reaching his lips. Finally, Liam smiled gently. "Emily has always enjoyed teasing people." Noah returned the smile. "She definitely has." They both laughed quietly, yet neither of them mentioned the question again. During the drive home, Noah replayed the conversation over and over. If someone had asked him that same question only a month earlier, he would have laughed without giving it another thought. Now the answer no longer felt simple. He realized the discomfort had not come from Emily asking the question. It came from the possibility that she had unknowingly spoken aloud something he had been trying not to recognize himself. Later that night, Noah looked at the framed photograph from the camping trip resting on his bookshelf. Everyone in the group appeared happy, yet his eyes immediately settled on Liam standing beside him with the same familiar smile that had been part of his life for almost a decade. Noah quietly wondered whether friendship alone could explain why one casual question from an old friend had stayed with him long after every other conversation from the evening had already faded away, And for the first time, he began to suspect that his heart had recognized the truth long before his mind had been willing to accept it. Several quiet weeks passed after Emily's unexpected question, and although life appeared to return to its familiar rhythm, Noah could no longer pretend that nothing had changed inside him. Every ordinary moment with Liam seemed to carry a quiet significance that had never existed before. They still met for coffee every Tuesday morning, still exchanged recommendations for books and movies, and still spent weekends exploring local bookstores or walking through neighborhood festivals. Yet Noah had become painfully aware of how naturally his happiness seemed connected to Liam's presence. One Friday afternoon, Liam called while Noah was finishing a client presentation. His voice sounded calm, but there was an unusual hesitation beneath it. "Do you have time for dinner tonight?" he asked. Noah smiled immediately. Of course. They met at their favorite small Italian restaurant where the owner already knew their usual table beside the front window. After they ordered, Liam rested both hands around his coffee cup before speaking. "Something happened at work today." Noah listened carefully. Liam explained that he had been offered an opportunity to become an assistant principal at a respected school in Seattle. It was the kind of promotion educators worked toward for years, bringing greater responsibility, professional growth, and the chance to help shape an entire school community. Noah congratulated him sincerely because he truly meant it. Liam had earned every opportunity through years of patience and dedication. Even so, as the conversation continued, Noah noticed an unfamiliar heaviness settling quietly inside his chest. Seattle was more than 1,500 miles away. Weekend breakfasts would disappear. Spontaneous evening walks would become impossible. The comfortable certainty that Liam was always only a short drive away would suddenly become a memory. Noah carefully hid those thoughts behind an encouraging smile. "That is incredible," he said. "You deserve an opportunity like this." Liam thanked him softly, but did not look completely convinced. During the following week, Noah volunteered to help Liam organize old teaching materials, sort through books, and prepare documents that might be needed if he accepted the position. One Saturday afternoon, they worked together inside Liam's apartment, surrounded by cardboard boxes, framed photographs, and shelves filled with years of carefully collected novels. While placing old college notebooks into a storage box, Noah discovered a faded photograph tucked between two textbooks. It showed the two of them standing outside their university library 10 years earlier, smiling with the easy confidence of young men who believed the future would always leave enough time for every important person to remain close. Noah held the photograph quietly before handing it to Liam. Liam laughed warmly. "I forgot that picture even existed." Noah studied it for another moment. They looked younger, less certain, but already inseparable. Suddenly, he realized the comfort he had always associated with friendship had been growing quietly for years without asking permission. This feeling had not appeared at the crowded café or during the camping trip. Those moments had simply revealed something that had already taken root long ago. As evening sunlight filtered through the apartment windows, Liam carefully placed the old photograph into a separate folder instead of packing it away with everything else. Noah noticed the small decision without saying anything. When he finally returned home, he placed his own apartment keys on the kitchen counter and stood silently in the fading light. For the first time since Liam mentioned Seattle, Noah stopped asking whether his feelings were changing. Instead, he found himself wondering whether he had simply recognized them far too late, and whether the person who had quietly become the center of his ordinary life might soon be living far beyond the distance that even the strongest friendship could easily cross. The days following their conversation about Seattle seemed to move both too quickly and far too slowly. Noah continued helping Liam prepare for every possibility without asking what he secretly wished would happen. They spent quiet evenings sorting books into labeled boxes, donating old classroom supplies, and organizing years of lesson plans that filled nearly every shelf inside Liam's apartment. Each ordinary task carried an unspoken awareness that time suddenly felt precious. Neither of them mentioned the growing uncertainty between them, yet it quietly existed in every shared glance and every lingering goodbye. One Saturday morning, they decided to take a break from packing and walked along the river that had become one of their favorite places over the years. The autumn air felt crisp, the trees reflected shades of gold and crimson across the calm water, and runners passed by with cheerful greetings as families enjoyed the peaceful weekend. Noah carried 2 cups of coffee while Liam pointed toward a familiar bench where they had often stopped to rest after long walks. They sat together, shoulders almost touching again, and watched small boats drift slowly across the river. The silence between them no longer felt accidental. It felt carefully protected. After several quiet minutes, Liam smiled gently. "Do you remember when we came here after my first year of teaching?" Noah nodded. "You were convinced you had made every mistake possible during your first semester." Liam laughed softly. "You spent 3 hours reminding me why I should not give up." Noah looked toward the water before answering. "I never doubted you." Liam lowered his eyes toward the coffee cup, warming his hands. "You have never doubted me about anything." The words settled gently between them. Noah realized there was no dramatic confession hidden inside the conversation, only years of trust becoming impossible to ignore. They continued walking along the riverside trail until the afternoon sunlight began stretching long shadows across the path. Liam paused near a small overlook where the city skyline appeared beyond the trees. "Seattle wants my answer next week," he said quietly. Noah felt his heartbeat quicken, but he forced himself to remain calm. "Have you decided?" Liam slowly shook his head. "Not yet." Noah searched for the right words, but found only honesty. "Whatever you choose, I will be proud of you." Liam smiled with gratitude, although something thoughtful remained behind his eyes. Before they left the overlook, Liam unexpectedly reached into his jacket pocket and unfolded the old college photograph Noah had discovered the previous week. He had carried it with him the entire time. "I keep looking at this picture," Liam admitted. "It reminds me how much of my life has always included you." Noah looked at the faded image before quietly smiling. "I was thinking exactly the same thing." They both laughed softly, surprised by the coincidence, and continued their walk without rushing the conversation any further. That evening, Noah returned home with an unusual sense of calm despite the uncertainty that still remained. He understood that some answers could not be forced before their time. Even so, as he placed the old photograph beside his bedside lamp after Liam insisted he keep it for a while, Noah realized that the distance between friendship and something deeper no longer felt impossible to cross. What frightened him now was not the possibility of loving his closest friend. It was the thought that he might never find the courage to tell Liam before life quietly carried them in different directions. Monday arrived carrying the quiet weight of unanswered questions. Noah spent the morning reviewing architectural plans inside his office, but every straight line he drew seemed to bend back toward the same thought. Liam would receive the final deadline from the Seattle school before the end of the week. Until then, every ordinary conversation felt balanced between hope and goodbye. That evening, Liam invited Noah to take another walk along the river after work. The familiar path stretched beneath rows of maple trees whose leaves drifted gently across the sidewalk. Neither of them hurried. They had walked this route so many times that every turn carried a memory neither needed to explain. They stopped at the overlook where the skyline reflected across the water as the last light of day slowly disappeared. Liam rested both hands on the railing and quietly watched the city. Noah stood beside him, searching for words that refused to come easily. Several long moments passed before Liam finally spoke. "I have been thinking about Seattle every day." Noah nodded. "I figured you had." Liam smiled faintly. "The strange part is that every time I imagine living there, the first thing I notice is who is missing from the picture." Noah felt his heartbeat quicken, but he remained silent. Liam looked toward the river again. 10 years is a long time to build a life around someone without realizing how important they have become. Noah lowered his eyes, knowing he could not hide behind comfortable friendship any longer. He took a slow breath before speaking with complete honesty. "There is something I should have told you weeks ago." Liam turned toward him without interrupting. Noah continued quietly. "I kept trying to convince myself that I was only afraid of losing my best friend. Then I realized that was never the whole truth. I was afraid because somewhere along the way my heart began hoping for something more, and I did not even notice when it happened." The evening breeze carried the scent of the river between them. Noah forced himself to continue before fear could silence him again. "I never said anything because I believed protecting our friendship mattered more than admitting how I felt. If you do decide to move, I will still support you exactly the way I always have. Nothing about your future should depend on my feelings. I only did not want you to leave without knowing the truth." Liam remained completely still, his expression thoughtful rather than surprised. After another quiet moment, he smiled with unmistakable warmth. "Do you know what I have been afraid of?" Noah slowly shook his head. Liam answered with gentle honesty. "I was never worried that you might not feel the same way. I was worried that I had imagined everything, and that speaking first might change the safest friendship I have ever known." Noah could not help smiling through the emotion that quietly settled between them. Neither of them rushed forward. Neither of them tried to turn the moment into something dramatic. They simply stood beside each other as they always had, except the silence no longer carried uncertainty. It carried understanding. As the city lights shimmered across the river, Noah realized that telling the truth had not taken anything away from their friendship. Instead, it had revealed that the strongest part of their relationship had always been honesty, and for the first time in many years, the future no longer felt frightening simply because they were finally looking toward it together. Liam hardly slept that night, not because the future still felt uncertain, but because the uncertainty had finally been replaced with a quiet sense of peace. For the first time in years, he no longer needed to wonder whether the person who understood him better than anyone else shared the same feelings. The following morning, he arrived at school carrying the same lesson plans and greeting students with the same patient smile, yet every familiar moment seemed brighter than before. Across town, Noah found himself smiling through an entire morning meeting after realizing he no longer had to hide the truth from the person who mattered most. Late that afternoon, Liam sent Noah a simple message asking if they could meet after work. Noah answered almost immediately. They returned to the same riverside park where countless conversations had quietly shaped their friendship over the years. The autumn breeze moved gently across the water while golden sunlight reflected against the calm river. They walked side by side without feeling the need to fill every moment with conversation. The silence between them had become something comforting instead of uncertain. After a while, Liam stopped beside the familiar overlook and reached into his jacket pocket. He unfolded a neatly printed letter before handing it to Noah. Noah recognized the official letterhead from the Seattle School District immediately. He looked at Liam with quiet curiosity. Liam smiled gently. "I called them this morning." Noah waited patiently. "I thanked them for believing in me, and I respectfully declined the position." Noah looked surprised. "You did not have to make that decision because of me." Liam slowly shook his head. "I did not make it because of you alone. I made it because I finally understood what I truly wanted. Opportunities will always come and go. Careers continue to change. Promotions appear when we least expect them. But there are very few people who become part of your everyday life in a way that quietly changes who you are. I realized I was building my future around a job, while pretending the person beside me was only another chapter of my past." Noah lowered his eyes for a moment before smiling with unmistakable gratitude. "I never wanted you to sacrifice your dreams." Liam answered softly. "I am not sacrificing anything. I am choosing the dream that already existed before I knew how to describe it." They continued walking until they reached the small café where everything had quietly begun weeks earlier. The same outdoor patio remained filled with evening conversations, warm lights hanging above the wooden tables, and familiar neighbors enjoying the peaceful atmosphere. The long wooden bench was empty this time. Liam laughed quietly before sitting in exactly the same place where he had once found himself shoulder to shoulder with Noah. Noah sat beside him, leaving no extra distance between them. Neither of them looked away. Neither of them felt the need to question the closeness anymore. They talked about future vacations, career goals, family holidays, and all the ordinary moments they hoped to continue sharing. Their plans sounded remarkably simple, yet each one carried a deeper meaning because both finally understood they were imagining the same future. As the evening slowly settled around the quiet cafe, Noah realized the greatest change had not happened when either of them admitted their feelings. It happened when they both chose honesty over fear and discovered that the strongest friendships are not weakened by love. Sometimes they simply become the place where love has quietly belonged all along. 1 year passed with remarkable quietness, not because life had become less complicated, but because Noah and Liam had learned that the strongest relationships are built through thousands of ordinary moments rather than a single extraordinary day. Their routines remained comfortingly familiar. Tuesday mornings still began with coffee before work. Saturday afternoons still led them through neighborhood bookstores, farmers markets, and peaceful walks along the river where countless conversations had shaped both their friendship and the life they now shared with complete honesty. Friends often smiled when watching them together because nothing about them appeared dramatically different. They still laughed at the same old jokes, still finished each other's stories without realizing it, and still looked for one another first whenever they entered a crowded room. The only real difference was that neither of them felt the need to hide why those ordinary moments mattered so deeply. Early one autumn evening, Emily invited the entire group back to the same neighborhood cafe where everything had quietly begun a year earlier. The familiar strings of warm lights stretched above the outdoor patio, soft music drifted through the evening air, and the long wooden bench remained exactly where it had always been. Someone joked that they should recreate the group photograph from the previous year. Everyone gathered together beneath the lights, laughing as they searched for the same positions they had chosen before. Without speaking, Noah and Liam naturally ended up standing beside each other once again. The camera flashed, preserving another ordinary memory that somehow felt unforgettable. After several friends left for the evening, Noah and Liam remained behind with 2 cups of coffee resting on the weathered wooden table. The patio gradually became quieter as the night settled across the neighborhood. They walked toward the familiar bench before sitting exactly where they had been 1 year earlier. This time there was plenty of open space on both sides, yet they chose the same quiet closeness without hesitation. Noah looked around the peaceful cafe before smiling to himself. "Do you remember what I wondered after that first night?" Liam nodded gently. "You wondered why neither of us moved away." Noah laughed softly. "I thought it was only about a crowded bench." Liam looked toward the glowing cafe lights before answering. "Maybe it never was." A comfortable silence settled between them, carrying no uncertainty and no fear. Noah realized that the answer had always been surprisingly simple. Neither of them had moved because, even before they understood their own hearts, they had already found the place where they felt most at home. Liam reached into his jacket and unfolded the same faded college photograph they had carried back and forth for months. He placed it beside the newer picture taken at the cafe only minutes earlier. 10 years separated the 2 photographs, yet one thing had never changed. They were still standing beside each other. Noah smiled with quiet gratitude. "We spent so many years believing we might lose our friendship if we admitted the truth." Liam returned the smile. "Instead, we discovered that honesty protected it." They remained on the bench long after the last customers quietly disappeared into the evening. The city lights shimmered beyond the nearby streets. The autumn breeze carried the familiar scent of fresh coffee, and the gentle sounds of ordinary life continued all around them. Noah finally understood that love had never arrived suddenly or demanded attention through dramatic moments. It had grown patiently through shared mornings, long conversations, quiet encouragement, and countless simple choices to remain beside one another. The shortest distance between 2 friends had quietly become the strongest foundation for a lifetime together, and neither of them ever found another reason to move away again.